Bleeding Mars by Asher J. Quazar. Chapter 1. Clouds. Fine red sand whipped past Desi's visor as he rode across the boundless crater. In the morning twilight, the thin atmosphere of Mars let light from 1,000,000 stars break through. The Milky Way bowed overhead like a streak of shattered opals, falling into the sunrise, and if Desi arched his head back, he could pretend that he was flying a hadron ship instead of riding a scuffed hadron bike. His wrist monitor flashed red, but the rush and grind of sand drowned out his alarm. He patted the polyamide tape sealing where his helmet and stasis suit met and checked the monitor screen. It read, "Secondary tank activated. 30 minutes of oxygen remaining." He looked back at the facility's glassy, ground-hugging habitation dome a mile behind him, and then eyed the ruddy clouds forming over the crater's crest half a mile ahead. Plenty of time, he thought. Desi decelerated as he crossed into the shadows cast by the mountainous ridge, stopping beside the 2-meter-tall silver pipe he had followed from the facility. He threw out his kickstand and dismounted, tossing a cloud of dust under his feet. The silt sucked on his weighted boots, making every step a battle as he trudged to the water meter. Fine as powder, cold as ice, and toxic as chlorine gas, this regoliath was always piling at the bottom of their crater. One day the facility would end up buried in it, but he doubted Eden Natural Healing would put up the money to dig them out. All the blood and sweat they sucked out of Verde Vallis, and corporate still refused to hire an actual engineer. Now Desi was out on the dust before sunrise, fixing something he was completely underqualified to touch. The meter's door dangled in the low-density atmosphere, its marred screen displaying error 415X00. Unsupported media type. Desi patted his helmet and frowned. He gave the massive pipe a sturdy kick and then listened. The fluid inside slushed and grated, but then gurgled down the pipe, washing out the frost blockage. Although it'd be a little crunchy tomorrow, they'd have something to water the crops with. When they'd get new heating coils was a different question. Desi shut the meter hatch, but as he took up his bike's kickstand, a buzz ran across the dunes like an army of rotary drones taking off. So deep he felt through his boots the vibrations drew shimmering ripples in the dust under his feet. Not good. Booming sands were moving sands, and once the sands got moving, there was no telling where it would stop. A gust shoved at Desi as dark sienna clouds rolled over the crater's peak. The sheets of clay-red dust piled against the ridge shifted, breaking into streams, gathering into rivers, and cascading down the crater's bowl into a powdery avalanche. A jolt of adrenaline jump-started Desi's heart, and he leaped onto his bike, pulling the throttle before his ass was on the seat. It lurched forward as the dust slide roared behind him. Hunched down, he hit the top speed in seconds, with his hadron whining and sputtering beneath him. He didn't know if she could handle this abuse, but he couldn't let up. If he could outrace the worst of it, he had a chance. The facility was a few hundred yards away and approaching fast. Losing ground and vision to the darkening murk, Desi gripped his vibrating handlebars and gritted his teeth. But the front hit him like a rolling wave of bricks. It tossed him off his bike, and his vision went dark, save for the dim twinkle of the 2 moons, Phobos and Deimos, confirming which way was up. He landed hard and immediately scrounged for a pipe that could lead him home, but grasped nothing but sand. His heartbeat pounded in his ears, hands shook, throat tightened. Had the dust gotten into his suit? Was he about to die exactly like Mithra had? A gust cleared Desi's vision, revealing a spindly column twisting in the storm glow, a newborn whirlwind making touchdown. He stumbled, head suddenly filled with helium, then felt something solid. His hadron's handlebars, but the bike was halfway encased in sand. The storm dragged on him, sucking him closer, while the sky darkened like drying blood. His suit blared. Warning, 15 minutes of oxygen remaining. Desi collapsed to his knees. This was it. The struggle was finally over. He choked on a sob and half-heartedly looked over his shoulder. A couple of lights switched on in the facility. Breakfast would be in an hour. It's too far. I'm too tired. I'm so damn tired. Something flickered in front of a light. A figure? A person holding the airlock open, trying to save Desi. His stomach dropped, but prickles raced up his skin. He couldn't let another person die for his mistakes. Not again. He surged forward, jumping onto the fat water pipe and hauled himself up. Staggering against the wind, he threw his weight forward, lined up each foot squarely on the pipe, and ran until the specks of light grew, then dove, crashing in front of the airlock. He groped for the handle and rattled the door, but it wouldn't budge. Every time he pulled, the screen flashed. Entry not permitted. Dangerous atmosphere conditions detected. And corporate had spoken. The tape would not hold. The dust would get in. And Desi would ruin a good suit with his stinking corpse. At least whoever had tried to save him had the sense to turn back. He smiled, and a couple of his tears were grateful ones. 10 minutes of oxygen remaining, his suit said. Desi wedged himself into the corner where the pipe met against the habitation dome, while the storm stained the facility lights into the colors of rust and gore. Sand piled around him until he formed a dune himself, helmet labeled 000 sitting on top like a grave marker. Entombed, he pressed his hand against the tape on his neck seal, and the dust exerted its pressure onto him. 5 minutes of oxygen remaining. The hot stink of his helmet, chalky taste on his tongue, and cold nylon of his suit became his world. This was how Mithra had died. Taking shallow breaths alone, tangling with unfinished thoughts. Desi recalled the last time he had kissed someone, regretting he stopped it before they went further. He wished that he hadn't broken up with that cocky, freckled boy. It would have been nice to fall in love once, even if it never would have worked out. Oxygen depleted. Emergency pressure balance initiated. The air valve seated over Desi's heart halted its subtle blow. Life support failure imminent. His breathing steadied as a hush settled over the dunes. It was quiet for a storm, though too early for one to stop. Unless it wasn't a storm at all, but a sandslide so large it kicked up a dust devil the size of a tornado. Desi's eyes snapped open. The door was still locked, but he shrugged off the pile of sand gathering around him and crawled, taking every second to preserve the oxygen held in his blood. He pulled the handle lightly, then again and again. His lungs ached and his vision blurred. But when a green light flashed in the corner of his eye, he tugged and the door hissed open. Desi stumbled into the airlock, slammed the pressure toggle, and threw his helmet off as the door sealed. Even though the thin air reeked of chlorine, it was better than the lung-searing carbon dioxide in his suit. He rubbed his neck and took a cooling breath, but his skin suddenly flushed. I almost died. Tears rose to his crusty eyelashes, but he took a few quick breaths and stuffed them down. You've got work. Worry about it after work. He climbed out of his stasis suit and hung it with the others. 996, 997, 998, 999, 000. He touched the suits one after another, but each one, but his own, dome cold. Beads of sweat ran down Desi's back as he trudged to his room. He still had a full shift ahead of him, so he shut the door and stripped down. With his syrup-brown hair tossed and greasy, he fought to peel off his sticky thermal tights. Finally free, he wiped down with a damp towel pulled from the dispenser in the wall and let the frosty air wake the moisture off his skin. Desi's room was 7 square feet, cluttered with tools and rusted free weights, and decorated with a single poster of Hadron's microclass racing between the rings of Saturn. At a back crater colony like Virda, a 22-year-old man without a partner or children got the bare minimum. This single was a downgrade from his mom's 3-room suite, but he couldn't handle her constant questions about when he'd go back to college. She already knew the answer was never. Balled up in his damp tights, Desi's phone blared an obnoxious alarm. He groaned and got off his crinkly mattress. Of course he hit the radiation limit on payday. He slathered himself in UV blocker and threw back the isotope supplement, hoping to salvage his grade before extraction. Desi pulled a fresh pair of slate-gray coveralls, their neon yellow label reading 000, from the drawer under his bed. His employee ID came with the matching nickname 0, and a responsibility of being the facility's unofficial, uncompensated engineer. The systems on Verde Vales were designed to be autonomous. But for as long as anyone could remember, it was Zero's job to keep them running. Kick a pipe here, adjust a knob there. It was nothing a manager couldn't do themselves, but they didn't. And it took at least a day to bring a technician out from Meridiani. That's why lucky number 000 was the funniest joke on Verda. Extra work for no extra pay. But Desi had volunteered for it. It was the least that he could do after the accident. He changed into a fresh uniform, grabbed his company-issued device from its charging port on the nightstand, and laced his lead-bottomed boots. But before he left, he stopped at the speedship poster taped on the back of his door. In slick neon, it read, "Break orbit, break barriers, take your destiny." That had been Mithra's plan, to get the hell off this planet and actually do something with her life. She'd have made a great scientist if she'd had the money for tuition. Probably have invented some life-saving discoveries along the way, but she got stuck working as the facility's Zero instead. She had been so good at it that the lights never flickered, and people stopped stashing emergency oxygen tanks under their beds. But now, she'd never see outside Virda. Not that Desi would either. He was going to die here exactly like she had. It was only a matter of time. He tore the poster off his wall and threw it on a pile of dirty socks in the corner. Giving colony kids outlandish ambitions like that was a cruel joke. No one left this place. Desi pressed his palms over a pain in his chest as his body tightened up, but then he exhaled harshly and pounded his fist on his forehead. "Don't be dramatic," he told himself. "Get your ass to work before Gian docks the rest of your pay." The greenhouse would help him calm down. It always did. He loaded the hydroponics monitoring tool on his tablet and left his room. Illuminated by ads from homeopathic supplements and organic juices he couldn't afford, the facility's halls were dead empty at this hour. But he liked the quiet. When he entered the saffron greenhouse, the whisper-like hum of the cyclocopters skimming the fields filled the air. Occasionally, they stopped to examine a plant and then released a burst of pesticides before drifting away on their cylindrical wing paddles. After checking the hoses for leaks and making his adjustments, Desi took a moment to look down the thousands of rows of bulbs. For the past week, the stems sprouting from each bulb had looked like white worms, reaching out from the charcoal-gray substrate, though now a swollen purple flower bud topped each stalk. There had to be 1,000,000 of them ready to bloom, and turning down the water wouldn't stall them any longer. Desi leaned his head back to meet the Milky Way band fading in the sunrise, and sighed, as if this day couldn't get any worse. Like most of the complex, the ceiling of the company cafeteria was made of transparent ceramic tile. Martian sunlight was half as bright as Earth's, and the average temperature was well below freezing. So they had to leverage every joule of energy for maximum profitability, or something like that. It made Desi grateful that he wasn't as prone to sunburns as the average Veridin. Lined up with other drowsy workers, he weighed his options at the food counter. Tepary beans and okra chili, millet and squash mash, yucca fries, and cactus pears. As usual, the locust meal packets were untouched, and they'd remain untouched until the next global dust storm. Like their lack of holiday bonus, storms were an inevitable seasonal disappointment. The last one lasted so long that the only food left was the iron supplement synthesized from the dust itself. It was funny no one ate the scorpions or centipedes. In fact, they had to feed the predators, or there wouldn't be anything to stop the jerabaos from devouring their crops when the sun came back. Desi grabbed a serving of pears and fries and scanned his wrist-embedded chip at the terminal. The machine played the cheery jingle and demanded he accept the terms and conditions of a 12-hour payment plan for a $1 charge. It was a total ripoff, but his credit had been in the negative since he signed the rental agreement for his work boots. After he accepted the loan, the machine dispensed a carefully portioned unit of water into his bottle, and 3 chalky pills clattered out of its dispenser port. It thanked him for shopping with Eden Natural Healing, as if he had any other choice. Desi scanned the crowd benches, identifying 999 plastered across the wide back. Employee 999, Ajax, had hair as scant as a wispy Martian clouds, and at the top of his head was red as a crater. A ginger-speckled beard covered his leather-worn face, and crow's feet, etched from decades of smiling, surrounded his tawny eyes. Before his eldest daughter, Mithra, he had been Virda's prior zero. But with the build of 3 men stuffed into one pair of coveralls, there was no way that he could fit into a stasis suit to do Evas outside at the facilities anymore. "How are the flowers looking, Zero?" he asked. "Purple. Too purple." Desi placed his tray down and took a seat. "I figured it'd be one of them days. If y'all get any blisters, I got Band-Aids," Ajax said. A petite girl popped her head from behind Ajax's mountainous shadow. "I'll need a couple, Pa. Otherwise, Ori won't give me my foot rubbing." With number 996 on her left breast, Vesta was lanky, but her muscles flexed under her golden, sand-colored hair when she reached to take bandages Ajax offered. Frizzy rust-orange hair framed her sunburned cheeks and button nose. Flecked with freckles from head to toe, she had gotten bullied relentlessly for looking dirty as a kid, but Desi thought the marks were cute. Her butterscotch eyes beamed like the brightest day on a Martian summer when they darted to Desi's prickly pears. "Can you really afford those?" "If I skip the entrees, I can." Desi handed her one. "You're going to regret that." She chomped on it, sending magenta juices running down her chin. "Why are you at the geeks table?" Desi asked. "Your friends are going to think that you finally left for Christ." "I figured that I could spend a morning with you and Pa. But if I'm not wanted—" "Hold on, girlie, you keep your butt in that seat," Ajax said. "I was teasing," Vesta giggled. "It wouldn't kill you to hang out with my friends sometime, Des." "No, it definitely would." He held a finger gun to his head. "Plus, your dad's way cooler." The old man broke into coughing, spitting laughter. Vesta yanked her tray out of spray range. "Watch your sprinklers, Pa." Desi laughed. "How is Ori? Is he enjoying kindergarten?" "Ugh, no. He can't sit still for 10 minutes. They ain't sending kids headsets no more, but me and Pa are saving up to get him one." "Shouldn't his adoption stipend cover school supplies?" "You'd think it, but between rent and food for the 3 of us, it's cutting it close already." Ajax let out a rattling cough, and his daughter smacked his back. "Maybe after the merger we'll get a couple cents raise," Vesta said. "More like a couple cents cut," Ajax said. "Wait, who are we merging with?" Desi asked. "Planeter. Not sure what they're going to do with overpriced essential oils, but they've been snatching up every company they can get their teeth into." Vesta shrugged. "Whoa, that's huge," Desi said. "So we might get a real technician?" "Clouds don't mean rain, boy," Ajax said. "I hear at them Planetaire facilities, all you got to eat is protein slurry, and they time how long you use the loo." "Psh, you gotta stop reading those conspiracy forums, Pa." Vesta rested her elbow and scrolled her phone. "The stuff on there ain't true." "We'll have to wait and see." Ajax sniffed and looked at Desi. "How's the Hadron doing you? I know her software was giving you some trouble." "Can we please talk about something interesting?" Vesta asked. "Did y'all hear about Aether Charm and Beth Andridge's wedding? They rode down the aisle on real organic elephants from, like, Earth." "Arthur who?" "Nah, girl, we're talking hadrons now. Listen and you might learn something." Vesta groaned and sunk into her seat. "I got caught in some sand." Desi rolled a fruit around his tray. "Vess, you weren't out Eva-ing this morning, were you?" She hastily sat up. "No. I haven't touched a suit since, you know." Ajax put his fork down with a clang. "Caught in sand or caught in a storm?" Just sand," Desi stuttered. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to dust up your bike." "I already told you. She's yours so long as you keep her in shape for when Ori gets big enough to ride." Ajax slapped Desi's back and rubbed his daughter's shoulders. "And how'd you be Zero without a bike? You can't walk yourself to them pipes." "I don't know about that, Pa." Vesta leaned over the table to look at Desi's behind. "Those domes can carry him pretty far." Desi covered his face while father and daughter hooted and laughed. Suddenly getting back to the greenhouse didn't seem so bad. Ring, chime. Ring, ring, chime. At 6:28 a.m., the horrible jingle that marked the start of the work shift played, and by 6:33, Desi and the other harvesters filed into the greenhouse, clippers in hand, where a sea of pale purple flowers swayed in the ventilation draft. The floral scent was sticky and sweet at first, like sun-baked dates, but that gave way to something muskier and bold. It coated Desi's tongue like a kiss after a heated argument. The last note was acrid, like burning flower petals. Or maybe that was the dust. Checking the air filters would have to wait because the saffron lost potency by the minute, so the harvest couldn't stop until every open bud had been gathered. The AI operators tried to stagger the blooming times, but organic systems were difficult to forecast, even with quantum models, so the junk Verda was running didn't have a chance. Eden Natural Healing had spent billions trying to automate the harvest, but it took a human touch to pluck the flowers without bruising their stigmas, which was essential to producing quality saffronol. The facility manager, Mr. Gian, loved to remind them their saffronol was the one thing of value in this crater, but he forgot that every human body here contained 10 units of vitamin D-rich blood. After hours of weaving up and down the hydroponic rows, the pollen had stained the tips of Desi's fingers orange. He grabbed a crop of flowers, clipped the stigmas scarlet tri-tips, and dropped them into a port of his saffron receptacle. He raised the clear canister slung by his hip and measured the mess of red threads inside. Then noticed Vesta sitting on a metallic hydroponic basin with her phone held high in the air. "You're getting rust stains on your uniform," Desi said. "Then that's the cost of fame." She lifted her leg onto the basin lip and took another picture. "And how many followers do you have again?" "Hey, I have a ton. You stop belly aching about my side hustle or I won't let you keep sucking up my satellite data. You think that it pays for itself? I'm not judging, but how do you always meet your quota messing around like that? Eating my vegetables helps," she bobbed her head. "Nice." Desi rolled his eyes and grinned. "Have you thought about leaving yet? Leigh says he can get us to Christ if I take out a little bit of a loan." "You're gonna trust the guy who smuggles pirated movies and cheap liquor into town?" "Not trust. Hire. And he hasn't lost a shipment yet. Getting 2 live humans past border control is a lot harder than sneaking through a pillowcase full of hard drives. And there's no way that you have enough credit for a Magna Loop ticket." "That's the trick." Vesta hopped to Desi's side of the basin and whispered, "He says that he won't need a ticket, because if we can get on the train, he can sneak us off. Think about it. You and me in Christ City, the dark light domes, the city of sharp smiles. From there, we could get better jobs and make our way off planet. College taught me one thing, Vess. Don't take a loan you can't pay off." Des, she threw a fistful of petals at him. "How else are we gonna get out of here? You said it yourself. We'll never afford a Magna ticket, and picking flowers all day ain't gonna get us any closer to being an astronaut." "An astronaut flies freighters and fixes asteroid miners. I was studying to be an exonaut." He swung his receptacle over his back. "Wait up, Rocket Man," she chased after him. "You see any ships around here?" "No. But we have a ton of cool rocks," he shrugged as he walked to the deposit chute. "I got a plan B if loans are a no-go." Vesta bounced on her toes and wiggled her eyebrows. "You want to hear?" "Probably not." Desi lined his receptacle up with a chute and jerked it a quarter turn, causing the vacuum to suck out the tangled threads. "Looky here." She bound to a door marked restricted access and cracked it open. "Stop." He slammed the door shut. "I'm not going in. I wanted to show ya. Pa told me that the key scanner broke, so they had to turn it to fail open mode. I figured that means it ain't locked." "That's what it means, but why are you telling me? I'm not qualified to fix it." "They make the saffronol in there. If we got a bit, I could sell it to Leigh easy." "That's a terrible plan." Desi walked to the greenhouse. "They track exactly how much saffronol is produced." "Can't you fudge the sensors or something? Do I look like a criminal?" He bulked. "And if I can't fix a scanner, how could I hack a billion-dollar facility?" Vesta dropped her shoulders and lost her silly grin. Desi's lips tightened. "I can help you save money for your ticket, but I think it's better if I stay." "On what world?" You've been itching to ditch this rust bubble since you got here. She kicked the basin. I don't want to stay, but... He knelt to tighten the loose bolt beside the scuff mark Vesta had left. Who will keep this place running if I go? It ain't your fault Verda's always sneeze away from breaking down. But it is. She knelt beside him, touching his arm. It isn't. He couldn't hear that from her, of all people. Not when it was his fault her sister was gone. Every breakdown Mithra could have prevented was his fault. If Verda failed, it would be his fault. Desi quickly stood, but static rushed to his head, and he teetered back. Vesta leaped to steady him. Are you okay? Yeah, he forced a smile. Got up too fast. You need to eat more. She squeezed his shoulder. You better not be skipping meals to save money for me. No, I wasn't hungry. I'm fine, really. He picked quickly to prove it to her. I need to concentrate, or I'll miss my quota. Your mom's gonna chew you up again. Vesta's sun-speckled cheeks puffed up when she frowned, but she went back to work. By 8:07 p.m., Desi's shoulders were satisfyingly sore, and the greenhouse 3 was a graveyard of pale worms and skeleton fingers again. Seated on the edge of the hydroponic basin, he examined a petal pinched between his fingertips, wondering how many subsidies it took to keep Verda profitable. Sure, there was a flooding and fallout on Earth, but at least they had air. Smaller than a saffron bulb, a jirabao dug its way into the substrate and shook the volcanic gravel off of its sail-like ears. It hopped on its tall back legs, searching saffron stalks for dewdrops. Desi glanced over his shoulder as he took a yucca fry out of his pocket. If he got caught feeding a pest, Mr. Gion would slap him with a fine. Food was for useful livestock, scorpions, centipedes, and humans, but Desi had always admired the mice. Those first few adventurous pets escaped their owners centuries ago, and now their descendants inhabited every habitation dome from Virda to the planet's capital. From traps to poison to laser-equipped drones, they had survived every extermination tactic corporate threw at them. Did Jirobao in the city have it better? Desi imagined there was more food in Christ, but more predators, too. I guess I'm more like the flowers than you, huh? He tossed the fry. The jirabao lunged for the morsel and then burrowed into the substrate, its fluff-tipped tail worming under the pebbles without a speck of gratitude. Desi frowned before he noticed what had made the mouse so flighty. Mr. Gion had paced up the rows. 0, get a move on! Yes, sir. He jogged to the end of the queue of laborers at the greenhouse exit, and when he got in line, his dried-out manager began lecturing him on Eden Natural Healing business brand etiquette. Desi nodded and mumbled in agreement as he absently scanned the new ads playing on the poster-sized screens dotting the facility corridors. In one, a porcelain-skinned woman with lips as red as a sucker that she popped into her mouth winked and whispered, "Donate. You're my type." It was corny, but still stole a chuckle from Desi. The next screen stole his breath. It was an image of Mr. Everest Eden himself, surrounded by young men and women with the same brilliant crimson hair and luminous amber eyes. A head taller than any of his family members, Mr. Eden was a tremendously muscular man in a Mars-red suit with waves of glossy hair tumbling down his chest, a courtly closed smile, and a jawline that you could pop open a bottle on. The text read, "We live because you give. From our family to yours. Thank you." Even when they had gotten a half day off work to celebrate Mr. Eden's centennial anniversary, they weren't shown a picture of him, yet his visage was undeniable. Preternatural. He didn't look a day over 35, though Desi didn't bother to check for airbrushing. The Edens were a perennial family and, thus, functionally immortal. Desi frowned at the toddler in Mr. Eden's arms. Surely that perennial was too young to take hemoglobin treatments. Are you listening? Gion looked back. Sorry. Desi caught up with the line. So, that new ad. I thought the Edens kept a low profile. They did, but Planeteer puts a face to their brand. On that note, this quarter's numbers must be perfect. We need Planeteer to pick Verda for a 9999 facility upgrade. They're refurbishing the facilities? I didn't see that in the newsletter. Desi reached the end of the line leading to the medical center, and as he stepped through the plastic slit of the dust-blocking membrane, the smell of latex and cleaner fluid hit him. I'm trusting you with this information because you aren't any other employee. We're a family here, and we depend on you. The doctor cleared her throat. We are a family? It's a turn of phrase, Renata. Gian smiled at her too hard. Desi had never liked how Gian smiled at her. He sat in a chair and clenched his fist as the doctor looked for a good vein. With bronze skin only beginning to gather wrinkles and deep hazel eyes, she was an uncharacteristically beautiful woman for a town like Verda. Her genes came from curated stock, and she had the Earth Latin accent to prove her off-world heritage. You going to watch? Desi asked Gian. You don't have to check for the saffron. I'm ensuring we hit both harvest numbers. The doctor inspected Desi's tear ducts and frowned. Gian groaned. Not this again. He's anemic, she said. Zero, you're letting the team down. It's a medical condition, she snapped. Renata, if you were going to bring your thin-blooded kid here, you should have put him through college instead of sticking me with him. Isn't there something you can prescribe him? The doctor met eyes with her son, Desi, then raised her head like she didn't remember fights with Gian always ended with threats of termination. Will you cover the costs of his prescriptions? What? Of course not, Gian said. Just take the blood. His mom opened her mouth, but Desi interjected. I'll donate. I can't afford the fine. That's the spirit, Gian grinned. Extract what you can and bring me the numbers. Desi's mother watched their manager leave, but when he shut the door, she rolled up her sleeve. Stop, Desi whispered. Desi? She looked older than he remembered, but her eyes still blazed. Let me give at least half of it. She smiled weakly. You don't have to fight me every time I help you. Then who else would I fight with? He rolled up his coverall sleeve. His mom shook her head. Miu coracao putendo. It was a bit of a language from the old world that her father had left her, broken from aged memory and blended with Earth Latin. She said he used to call her, his youngest of many children, his beating heart. Perennial families liked to keep those ancient dialects alive, and Desi's grandfather had been the last immortal of the Mirlo line before he died. Desi closed his eyes and tried not to shake too much when she swabbed his arm. He was still waiting to grow out of his fear of needles. After Desi had donated as much as his mom let him, and she gave as much as her body allowed, he helped her to her suite. Her home smelled like citrus disinfectant spray, and it brought back memories of his childhood birthday parties. Mom had a habit of stopping mid-party to clean. She always hosted because being a facility doctor entitled her to a spacious suite, though his father's career in sales had certainly helped. Dad and Ajax used to sit in those synth leather recliners discussing the newest contracts that he was working on while Ajax's wife had made sweet nut butter bites for the kids. Desi hid under the blankets with Mithra and Vesta, staying up late to watch space science videos that put poor baby Vesta, 4 years their junior, to sleep. In the morning, Mom had their necks for sneaking in meteorites Ajax had found on the dunes. But if Dad wasn't on a business trip, he would talk her into letting him keep them. The kid with the biggest house and the nicest toys, with an Earthling accent to boot, Desi didn't blame the other children for treating him differently. But somehow, he had become best friends with the two wildest girls in Verda. He smiled as he helped his mom into a recliner, but the cozy feeling didn't last. Now his father was gone. Ajax's wife and Mithra were dead, and his mother's suite was as silent and sterile as the medical center. I'm sorry, his mom mumbled. For what? Desi almost laughed. Giving birth to me? I should have helped you through school. I tried. Desi's joke soured on his tongue. You apologize too much. I was the one dumb enough to miss my final. Desi, his mom sat with a sudden vigor. You are not unintelligent, and what happened was not your fault. You finished early college at 17. Who else here graduated any college? You. And I did a 2-year program. That's not a real degree. But you got into Argyre University. The online program, the acceptance rate for an actual campus is different. Desi shut his eyes. And I spent the money that you saved without even passing the first year. I'm sorry. If I hadn't chased your father off, we'd have— No! Desi startled himself with how loud he had said it. I mean, he left. And I won't abandon you too. I don't want you to spend the rest of your life as a harvester to be with me. She smiled at him in the knowing way of a mother. Something is on your mind, son. Talk to me. I don't know. He sank into a chair. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. What do you want to do? Does it matter? The odds of me getting an actual career are as good as Mr. Eden calling me up and asking me to replace him as CEO. I guess I'll work here until I drop dead like everyone else does. I nearly did this morning. What do you mean? What happened? Work, Mars, you know. He shook his head, but he'd said too much. I'm too tired to talk about it. Yes, Mars. We should have never brought you here. She took her tablet from the end table and offered it. I want you to take this and to go to Christ with Vesta. I can't take your retirement money. Desi shrugged, but even that was difficult. I'll just end up back here anyway. She pressed the tablet towards him. No, you'll leave Mars. You know I won't. The room went silent. He stared at the floor. I'm sorry. It's late. Why don't you stay? No. I get up early. It'll bother you. He retreated to the hall. I'll let you rest. He shut her door before she could press, and then ambled to his room, ignoring the promises of late-night companionship whispered by the glowing ads along the walls. When he got to his room, he picked up the crumpled rocket poster from the floor and spread it face down on his desk, smoothing out the wrinkles. There was a message scrawled on the bottom corner. I heard this program of yours is pretty tough, but don't forget to enjoy college. So long as you know where you're headed, you'll get there in your own time. M. Desi retaped the poster to his door and collapsed onto his bed without changing or washing. It stunk like a mechanic lubricant, sweat, and saffron.